All right, today's lesson is going to be on ions. Ions are going to be charged particles when a neutral atom loses or gains electrons. So when a neutral atom loses or gains electrons, it creates ions. And we have two types of ions. We have cations, which are a positive charge because they have lost electrons. We have anions, which are a negative charge because they have gained electrons. So let's look at an example, and let's look at the example of lithium. Lithium is an atomic number 3. So in its neutral form, lithium has 3 protons and 3 electrons. So it's neutral because all the positives cancel out all the negatives. Now, lithium actually loses 1 electron. So if lithium was to lose 1 electron, and we're going to learn how that happens in a minute, what is it left with? A single positive proton, which is why cations lose electrons and become a positive charge. That charge is coming from those excess of the protons in the nucleus that are no longer being canceled out in terms of charge by the electrons. Fluorine has an atomic number of 9, and it has 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 protons, and it has 9 electrons. Now, fluorine actually gains 1 electron, and we're going to learn how that happens here in a few minutes. But what happens here? The positive and negatives are canceling, but there's an extra electron, which is why fluorine in its ion form is an anion, and it is gaining electrons. So the gaining of a negative creates a negative. The losing of a negative creates a positive. So let's look at some examples, and we're going to go with aluminum and chlorine because we did a video previously and already drew the Bohr models for a neutral atom of aluminum and chlorine. So we're going to use this information in order to look at the ions. In order to do this, we need to know a couple of things. We need to know a term, and the term is valence electrons. So let me come up here and just add this term in, valence electrons. Valence electrons are the electrons on the outer ring of the Bohr model. So this is the outer ring. So valence electrons are the outermost electrons. How many valence electrons does aluminum have? 1, 2, 3. Now, the goal is 8, and aluminum has 3. So we now have 2 options. Aluminum can lose 3 electrons, and if aluminum loses all 3 electrons, what do we notice? We notice this second shell is in fact 2, 4, 6, 8, so it's happy. The other option, aluminum could come in and gain 5 additional electrons. All right, which would give us 8 electrons total. And since the goal is 8, the question becomes, what is going to actually happen? Is aluminum going to lose or gain? And the answer is in terms of energy. Mother Nature's going to do what is more energetically favorable, whatever is going to require the least energy. So think about it in terms of a project. I give you a project and I say, you have two project options. One is going to take you 3 hours, lose 3, or one of those projects is going to take you 5 hours. Which project option are you going to choose? Probably the 3-hour option because it is the easier option. I would choose the 3-hour option as well. Why do a 5-hour option when you can do a 3-hour? I get that. So Mother Nature's the same way. So if aluminum loses 3 electrons, what are we left with? The 13 protons are still in the center. The 14 neutrons are still in the center. There is still the first energy level with 2 electrons. And there is still the second energy level that had 8 electrons. So aluminum simply lost these 3 electrons. So if aluminum had 13 electrons to begin with, and it loses 3 electrons to form an ion, it would have 10 electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 electrons. So this is an aluminum ion. When we lose electrons, we said we form a cation, which is a positive. And how many electrons were lost? 3. So our oxidation number up there at the top is a 3+. Aluminum has lost 3 electrons to form a cation. Let's look at chlorine. Chlorine has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 valence electrons. If chlorine has 7 valence electrons, we have 2 options. Chlorine can lose these 7 to form 8, or chlorine can gain 1. 1 is less than 7, so chlorine is going to choose that option. So let's gain 1 electron. My proton numbers stay the same. My neutron numbers stay the same. My first energy level has 2. My second energy level still has 8. Oh man, I just put my dots on the wrong spot. Let me start over because I just put my dots on the wrong spot and I don't want to confuse you. Okay, so let me come over here. Now, we said we're going to gain 1. So if I have 7 and I gain 1, 7 plus 1 is 8. So my third energy level is going to have 8 electrons as well. Now, chlorine gains 1 electron, and when you gain an electron, electrons are negative, so you become a negatively charged particle. So it is a negatively charged particle, and it only gained 1 electron, so our chlorine 1 minus. Now in math, the 1 is understood, so you don't really have to write the 1, so you could just do Cl minus, and that's understood to be a 1 minus.